So what you're looking at now is the Museum of Contemporary Art, but
that was previously known as the Maritime Building. They controlled all the shipping in Sydney Harbour.
That's right. The museum was opened in 1991, as I said, as the Museum of Contemporary Art. In 2010, it underwent a $58 million expansion and redevelopment. So here we have the home of John Cadman. John came here in 1797 from England for stealing a horse. This was his home from 1827 to 1845. John Cadman was the last superintendent of the government boats here in Sydney Harbour. He worked in Kincastle Hill as a convict labourer and then was transferred to the government dockyards in 1809. Cadman Cottage was built in 1816. It's the oldest still standing residential house in Sydney. It was restored in 1972 and is now owned by the National Parks and Wildlife Department.
Built in 1816, Cadman's Cottage is one of only a handful of Sydney buildings that remain from the first 30 years of the colony. Over the years, this sandstone cottage has been a water transport headquarters, a sailor's home and a water police station, among other things. It used to be beside the water, but since the construction of Circular Quay, the harbour has moved 100 metres away. Very interesting. I just love this old building.
For 150 years or more, old Cadman's Cottage has weathered time near Sydney's Circular Quay. It was built by a former life-term convict in 1816 or earlier, and now Sydney's oldest dwelling is being restored. John Cadman died in 1846 and was buried at La Perouse. He had no way of knowing that his sandstone cottage would linger through the centuries to become a monument to old Sydney town.
Harbour Bridge. Sydney Opera House.
Now here's something I didn't know about, Jeff. The Metcalfe Bond stores. They were known as the Bond stores, where goods remained in the storage until importers paid the customs duty on them.
They're currently renovating these buildings, and they're trying to bring them back to the original type of building at the time.
As you can see, there's a lot of work going on, but hopefully we'll film again at a later stage and it'll be completed. Here's our Sydney Harbour Bridge. As you can see, there's climbers on top, and that's open to the public. Anyone can climb it, and we've both done that, haven't we, Jeff?
Yeah, sure. And the cost of the climb is well worth it.
Oh, well worth it.
The views of Sydney Harbour are spectacular.
Something you need to do once in your life at least, even twice if you're able to.
Let's go.
This is the Dawes Point Battery. Jeff getting blown away here. And this is actually Dawes Point. So originally this was an observatory constructed in 1788 by Lieutenant William Dawes. In 1798, the governor's concern regarding the arrival of schooner prompted defensive measures at Battery. So George Barney, one of Australia's most important colonial engineers of the 19th century, oversaw the construction, and the site has been previously used as a cemetery for prisoners executed at Sydney Jail. So here we are at the Harbour View Hotel. It's the closest hotel to the Harbour Bridge. In the original Harbour View Hotel, built around 1843, was demolished to make way for this current one that you're seeing now. It was originally situated where the granite pylons now stand. The foundations of the building you can still see, located at the entrance of Dawes Point Park. The current owners purchased the Harbour View in 1998 and closed it in 2000 to do some renovations. It's now heritage listed. Yeah, there's about 14 hotels throughout the Millers Point region, but this is one of the popular ones, and especially by the military garrison of the time. So it was built of sandstone used from the Argyle Cut, originally called the Young Princess. Now, legend has it the hotel was used by the sea captains to recruit new members. So unsuspecting patrons who drunk themselves silly were said to have been pulled through a trapdoor and carried through the underground tunnel to await ships in nearby Walsh Bay.
That's where the old saying Shanghai comes from, mate.
That's right, it is. So yeah, this is an interesting story and a really wonderful, well-preserved hotel.
And wake up with a hangover on a ship.
This is Holy Trinity Church in Millers Point, also known as the Garrison Church. It was the first military church built in the colony, and it continues to be active to this day. It's an Anglican church, part of the Diocese of Sydney. It's located at the north end of Fort Street and surrounded by houses and terraces from the Georgian and Victorian periods. The lead-lined windows here are magnificent, and we're just showing you some of those. The Garrison Church was planned as a meeting place convened by Reverend William Cowper in December 1839. Cowper made a significant contribution to funding the church, stipulating that it be called the Holy Trinity. The land was granted for the church and associated schoolhouse by George Gibbs. The small adjoining hall was used as a school, and for a time it was the headquarters of the 30th Scottish Battalion. Yeah, another interesting fact that the Garrison Church was used as the parish church for Government House, and during World War II, troops on leave were housed and fed in Garrison Hall. The good thing about the Anglican Church is they have these comfy chairs at the back. Right now we're opposite Garrison Church, and this staircase was used in the film Playing Beatty Bow. That was based on the book by Ruth Parks, and tells the story of a girl from the 1980s that gets transferred back to the 1800s. You'll have to watch the film to find out how that happens. I won't give away the plot, but very enjoyable film, and one for the Rocks buffs. Especially if you want to look at how it may have looked back in those days. Now we're making our way up Fort Street to the Sydney Observatory. We'll take a look through that as well. From the Sydney Observatory we can see the Palisade Hotel, a real popular place for the wharves. Can I have a still camera?
Time board on top of Sydney Observatory. It used to be used to tell the ships what time it was.
And what time does it drop, Jeff?
It drops at 1 PM and all the ships in the harbour could calibrate their chronometers to make sure that they were all in sync.
So here we are at the Sydney Observatory. As you can see, Sydney Harbour Bridge through those chimneys. Here we have a little bit further over, you can see Luna Park, but I can see it, but I don't know if you can see it from where you are. And here we have the piers, Pier 1 and so on, which mostly are all residential now. And if you just jump over here, we have a little bit of Barangaroo, our newest attraction here at in Sydney. Just see a little piece of it. Where are you? Up 4?
They can move the dome, see over there?
Yep.
You turn that and the whole thing rolls around until it rolls. So they can face it any direction they want. Lighthouse.
From the Sydney Observatory we can see the Palisade Hotel, a real popular place for the wharfies and labourers who worked in the area. It overlooks the wharves in Walsh Bay and it's close to many of the warehouses.
Observatory Hill at the Rocks, and this must be one of the most beautiful views of the Harbour Bridge, one of our most iconic bridges in Australia. Sydney Observatory is the oldest observatory in Australia. It's been in use for more than 140 years. The observatory was built in 1788 for the passing of Halley's Comet. Fort Phillip was built to protect Sydney Harbour from a French invasion, but which never happened.
We're walking down Argyle Street now. It was named after Governor Macquarie, after County Argyll in Scotland, the place where he grew up. The rocks were divided into separate communities, separated by this rugged, steep rocky outcrop, which forms the ridge of the peninsula to the west of Sydney Cove. Now, building had taken place on either side of the ridge, but people wishing to travel from one side to the other either had to go the long way around Dawes Point or climb a series of stairs which joined the eastern and western sections of Argyle Street. So the whole Argyle thing started in 1816. Governor Macquarie floated the idea of cutting a passage through the rock face to join the east and the west sections of the Rocks community. There were lots of complaints from England and Sydney that Macquarie was wasting lots of funds on unnecessary public utilities, and Macquarie attempted to raise finance from local businesses, but it fell on deaf ears. The program languished until 1843, when convict chain gangs began their assault on the rock face with whatever tools they could find. 21 years later, the cut was completed and open to traffic.
What a feat for its time, Wayne.
It was enormous, wasn't it? And the fact that it took from 1816 to 1843 to get the whole thing happening.
It's incredible.
The Argyle stairs were built as part of the cut, which was widened to its present size on its western side around the turn of the 20th century. So right now we're walking down the Argyle Terrace, and as you can see, all these historic buildings are still in use and have done so, and there's also some new ones as well, but a lot of this whole area here is the terraces are all original buildings. This is a very interesting statue. On one side we have a section that recognises the convicts of the time, and also on the other side is the soldiers. It's all made of sandstone, and this is where they have the rocks markets on the weekends. So here we are at the Orient Hotel, and you've more than likely stumbled over this place or stumbled out of it. It's been a popular watering hole for Sydney-siders and visitors since 1844. So the building began life as a butcher shop and butcher's house in 1843. It has a restaurant and serves modern Australian dishes and international favourites. Yeah, I found this place absolutely fascinating. This is Susanna Place, and it's a terrace of 4 houses and a corner shop, and it's the only surviving working class dwelling of its era, and it's unique in having a history of domestic occupancy since the 1890s. So it was built for Edward and Mary Riley in 1844, who arrived from Ireland with their niece Susanna in 1838. The brick and sandstone house featured a basement, kitchen and a backyard outhouse. The buildings, which today house a museum on the working class history, have survived numerous demolition threats, especially in 1900 when a bubonic plague led to hundreds of neighbouring houses being knocked down.
In a future episode, we'll have a look through the museum, right?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to go through it and explore.
On a previous ghost tour of the Rocks, we were told that at the back of Susanna Place, there's been a woman seen on various nights. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah, we should investigate that one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a very old lamp and lamppost, and I'd say now it's gas or kerosene. No, kerosene would have been the original.
Oh, I think more so oil. They would have used oil like whale.
That's right.
With the whale blood.
That's right.
Blubber, yeah.
And it makes a nice backdrop because there are a lot of wedding photos being done around this area. Very popular place for photographers and wedding shots. So this is the home of the original Sydney Hospital.
Yeah, it was located in this area, and that's the reason why it's called Nurses Walk. Then it was relocated to Macquarie Street. The Rocks was once riddled with laneways connecting one section and level to another. Only a few of these narrow thoroughfares remain, but they reveal many secrets about the origins, growth and development of Australia's first colonial maritime village. By the middle of the 19th century, gracious 2- and 3-storey homes boasting peacocks and deer in their gardens and sweeping views of the harbour dotted the higher ground, whilst below a maze of winding streets and narrow cobblestone lanes lined with rat-infested hovels, hotels, brothels and warehouses were home to seafarers, cutthroats, prostitutes and working families. However, that all changed in 1900 when the bubonic plague swept through Sydney. The slums that had given the area its reputation were demolished, and many of its notorious black alleys, nooks and crannies vanished into history.
This is the Fortune of War Hotel. It's Sydney's oldest licensed hotel, still operating, and dates back to 1828. So the first licensee was Samuel Terry, who was transported to Australia in 1801 for 7 years for theft. When his sentence finished, he made the most of his misfortune to establish his business. This is the Fortune of War Hotel. It's to this day it's retained its old world charm, but also has built a reputation amongst tourists. A very, very popular tourist attraction. We come now to the Jack Monday mural. Born in 1929, Jack was an Australian union and environmental activist. He came to prominence during the 70s for leading the New South Wales Builders Labourers Federation in their famous green bands.
Here we are at the Russell Hotel, a unique example of a 19th century Queen Anne style hotel. It features a picturesque Scottish baronial tower. The three-storey hotel was built with roof shingles, rendered masonry, external walls with decorative string courses and other mouldings. The site was once part of the original Sydney Hospital.
I hope you've enjoyed our City of Sydney series. We hope to bring you the next instalment very shortly. And I hope it's enjoyable to you as much as we've enjoyed making it.
Bye for now.
Bye.